We go.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today on this very, special live call here. We're definitely going to spend a lot of time over the course of this call talking about how we can address the crisis that's happening right now. A lot of people working from home. Um, many school children are home as well too. So now is the time that we can really rise to meet that occasion and get people affordable broadband. So we're here today with myself. I'm CEO of Althea, Justin Kilpatrick, CTO of Althea, Liz, marketing extraordinaire, and
Hello.
I also just wanted to take a few minutes to introduce Elvis. I'm not sure how to pronounce your last name, Elvis. I'm so
Elvis
sorry.
Nuno.
Nuno. Okay. So Elvis, who has an Althea network that he is planning in Anderson Island in Washington. And let's start off by just talking really briefly with Elvis a little bit about what you're doing, what your project's about. We'll address the crisis that's happening and how we can respond. And then if we have a few minutes toward the end, try to circle back to what the work that you're doing and get some questions from the audience.
Sure. Yeah. Just a kind of quick introduction for me. I'm kind of a wireless ISP veteran. I originally worked at Clearwire or Sprint, what they became. So I've been in the industry for quite some time. So Althea really kind of stood out for me when I've always wanted to really start a wireless ISP. And I have a partner that I worked with at Clearwire, Kevin Messiab, who I'm working with, who has family on Anderson Island. Anderson Island kind of stood out for us because it's very isolated. It's got a lot of foliage. It's obviously, it's an island. And they've suffered from really poor service from CenturyLink for years. It's probably like DSL equipment from 20 years ago. Like they get like 3 meg down, maybe, and maybe a few kilobits up at best. So we're kind of starting with Anderson Island as as one of the first networks to attack to really kind of prove what Althea can do, and that we can take a community that's so isolated and is so underserved and provide them with the same service that people in Tacoma or Seattle would enjoy, in the excess of 100 megabit, plus type service. So I mean that's really bringing them, from the dawn of the internet type DSL speeds to 2020, and that's just something they just haven't had and are skeptical that they even can have. So we're really excited. We've been starting to really make an impression on the community there, and really been getting a lot of positive responses and desperately a desperate outcall for our service, especially times like this. So yeah,
Yeah. And just curious too, I mean, obviously Washington State, Seattle area, one of the hardest hit by COVID, and they're taking more and more drastic measures. Have you seen an increase of interest? Are you changing your plans at all to adapt to that? Just a few
yeah.
minutes.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, it just in the last few days, our pre-registrations have really spiked. We try and keep really active posts on our Facebook page. We kind of started off on talking about CenturyLink and their poor service and what they can expect from us, and now we've really been shifting to talking about the isolation is now even increasing all the more, and they don't have Kevin's mother also helps with tried to do telemedicine out there, and they can't do that there with the connections that they have out there. So that's put a big spotlight on how inadequate broadband service really harms a community, and makes a crisis like this that much more difficult for them. So I think now that we've been getting a lot of discussion, over all these things like teleeducation, telemedicine, and the focus on this, and them just not having this resource, we've been seeing just a huge influx of discussion over our service, and a lot of people reaching out, a lot of people pre-registering for our service, and really, really interested in what we can provide.
Yeah, similar sentiments, echoed throughout, I think, all of the ISP industry and folks in municipal internet. I've talked to a lot of folks at like the Broadband Advisory Council in Oregon, and I think what your point is about this really sort of brings to light how significant the digital divide really is. It really, this crisis really does bring that to the forefront of the attention. Um, I just actually recently was talking with our superintendent of schools here in the Columbia County in rural Oregon here in Clatskanie, and they measure approximately 18 to 21% of our school kids do not have broadband access or adequate access to access e-learning. And so with mandatory school closure of at least until the end of April, this is something that I feel is our opportunity to meet that need right now. The sort of other silver lining about this is that we are seeing flexibility from backhaul providers, from business owners with roof leases, who are willing to work with people that want to set up connectivity. So
Right.
this is both the time where there is like a crisis that us kind of IT nerdy folks can can help with, right? When we see our community members suffering and we can't, maybe we're not necessarily in healthcare or, able to triage situation, but this is something that we can triage, that we can
Right.
help in a meaningful, tangible way. And it's so huge to be able, I know we just recently, we're going to get someone connected who's a home care, or not a home care nurse, but she's a advice nurse that works on the phone. So if we can keep her home, keep her safe and healthy, online, but she was not able to access broadband connectivity before. So the work that we do is so impactful. And I really wanted to impress on everyone, all of our audience, that like now is the time to build. It's both we have an opportunity because people are willing to be more flexible about where we can locate equipment, getting backhaul and pricing, and also because this crisis will more perhaps deepen over the coming months. So now is the time to start on these projects and really move in an aggressive way. As I have been starting to work on what I call a rapid connectivity response, I have noticed that a lot of local leadership is a little bit still unclear about what the needs are, how to respond to them. So it's definitely on all of us to take the initiative to meet that need. I wanted to also pause here for a moment and see, Liz, if we had any questions or comments.
You're muted,
You're
Liz.
You're on mute.
That has to happen at least once every call. It's in our contract.
Still on mute.
You're still muted.
It took me a while to figure that one out. We don't have any questions yet. To everyone, please, you can leave your questions in the chat. You can also send them to us on Twitter. If you have anything about getting a rapid connectivity response network set up in your area, or want to learn more about it, or just have general questions. So we are monitoring the chat, and pop them in there, and I'll get them to our team.
So I want to give an overview about what this kind of rapid connectivity response can look like, how you might go about starting this. But I wanted to turn this over to Justin and let him kind of explain why Althea, like why is this the best solution to this need, or at least one of the better solutions. And maybe you can flesh that out a little bit.
Yeah, so when we talk about Althea being flexible, what we mean by that is that traditional ISP networks are designed pretty rigidly. So this is mostly, how should I put it? So this is complicated because it's interleaved. The software has been designed to be rigid because the physical network setup is normally pretty rigid in and of itself. So, you hear a lot about software-defined networking, et cetera, but things are still typically like hand configured for each home. Routers are still have to be configured when they're deployed, and you find in a lot of the larger organizations they start to get away from that some more. But the reality of the matter is that if you're going to each physical location and installing equipment, and you have to get a lease for that location, et cetera, there's a certain amount of things that can be simplified that people just don't bother with, because of the two big sort of requirements of the ISP stack is that it be completely, unquestionably reliable. So there are a lot of things that could potentially be streamlined and made quicker that companies don't normally focus on. And the difficulty of getting new networks set up, and like, so with traditional ISPs, like they will dig into right of way, so the side of roads. So sorry, right of way. I always mispronounce that. Anyway, so they'll dig into the sides of roads. They'll bury new cables. They will do all sorts of stuff like that, and that takes a very long time. So, if it takes a day or two to provision the equipment after that, maybe a couple of weeks, who really cares? It took you 5 years to get the cable in the ground, even. Althea works very differently, as it is designed to build a flexible network. So, Deborah's network in her hometown, Klatskanai, wouldn't be possible for a traditional ISP or a traditional wireless ISP. And the reason is that there's just no good way to see people. There's no good way to get to a lot of the customers that she helps serve. And this is actually pretty similar for Elvis and Anderson Island, is that they're just not easy places. They're not the easiest places to reach. You can't go in and say, here, there's a road, we're going to bury some fiber along this road and we'll be done. It involves a lot of perspective shifting. So Althea gives them the opportunity to use many small towers, and sort of get a perspective shift each time. So let's say you can't dodge trees from one perspective. Well, maybe if you go a mile down the road, you can. And because Althea compensates property owners, suddenly it's not a 5-year ordeal of getting into the city's property by the road, or a 2-year ordeal of negotiating a business lease on a tower or on a very tall building. Suddenly it's, you go to the property owner and you say, hey, here's a profit sharing system, and you'll get paid for all the traffic that comes through you. And this is a really dramatic shift in philosophy, and it allows us to reach the point where we can essentially install as quickly as we can talk to people and coordinate showing up at their houses, which in a time like this is significantly faster than normal. It's also important that we have backhaul, because, so the metaphor I use for internet service is that we're running a grocery store where we deliver fruit to people's homes, except this fruit expires in 500 milliseconds. So the backhaul providers are essential for getting to the internet before time runs out. And their flexibility is appreciated and really unprecedented right now. And that makes it much easier to start networks. And combined with Althea's install flexibility, Deborah's average install takes 2 hours, 4 hours if it's exceptionally difficult. And each install provides a new perspective on the network where you can hit more people and connect people that you previously couldn't see or couldn't reach. So we're really hoping to accelerate and try and meet the need that exists right now.
We have 2 questions from the chat. Would you want to? Do you have something?
Sure, I'll take those. Well, I don't know what they are. We'll see if I'm supposed to take them or if Deborah should take them.
No more fruit metaphors there, huh?
From Kai Man, they say, I'm so technologically ignorant. How hard is it for me to set this up in my community, and how fast is the internet?
Okay, so as for how difficult it is to set up, unfortunately the antennas still require a little bit of configuration. But long story short, if you can figure out, well, a bank's website may be a bit excessive. They can get pretty bad. Like if you can figure out how to send an email and like drop down boxes, somebody can teach you how to mess with the antennas. The rest is like, can you mount a flagpole? You can probably mount an antenna. Like a small little flagpole. I'm not talking a big one. I'm talking like a little flagpole you put on the side of your, on the side of your porch or whatever. So it's not exceptionally difficult, and it does require a little bit of work. And the speeds you can expect to get are mostly dependent on the quality of your line of sight. So can you see the other house? And if you can see it very clearly, then how fast you can go really depends on how much money you're willing to spend. So if you go to shop.althea.net, you'll find that we have a couple of packages of equipment that sort of resolve the different speeds. I think I forget exactly what the title is, but the lower tier one does about 200 megabits. The higher tier one does about 500. And we don't have a package put together for gigabit yet because most people don't want to pay the upfront costs. But I'm looking forward to do that in the next year. The hardware's really starting to get there. But that's a subject for another time.
All right. So yeah, we'll try to get those links up in both the description, and I'll put those links in the chat that Justin mentioned. And also from Jeremy, he says, "Hi folks, do you have any guidance on regulations we'd need to consider to set up quickly in California? We're investigating rural coverage in the Santa Cruz Mountains using CBRS LTE."
So there, as far as I understand, there isn't any other ISP regulations in California. We'd have to dig into that just a little bit, other than other than just the normal stuff. So using unlicensed spectrum would be pretty easy and something you could do right away. You can even get unlicensed 5 gigahertz stuff on Amazon, have it delivered in a couple of days. So all of that is pretty easy and straightforward. CBRS, the gear is still pretty new. I guess I would ask you, like, is it because you want to get non-line of sight? There may be other non-line of sight options that would work better. And the other kind of observation I would make there too is one of the flexibilities of Althea is that you can make line of sight connections in typically non-line of sight areas, because you can hop around trees, and you can keep radios pretty close together because you're using relays to service those areas. So definitely a CBRS build would probably be a little bit less rapid. It definitely can be done. But so you may want to consider maybe starting with 5 gigahertz non-licensed stuff and kind of using Althea's flexible approach, and then looking at a larger CBRS build, if that makes sense. I also wanted to kind of loop back to the first question about how hard it is to do. So Althea wants to make it as easy as possible to start network. So we have a lot of tools available for kind of every aspect of starting a network. You can start by going to republic.co/Althea, learn about what the process is, learn about kind of the project management, submit a proposal for us to help you. We will help you find backhaul, source good pricing for that. Wholesale, that backhaul meaning kind of the wholesale initial connection. We also have a CRM through our Altheahood sites, which lets you pre-register people or sign them up. And right now you can even link your Calendly account to that. So what that does is someone signs up for service, brings them right to your calendar, and then you can schedule a site survey with them, or if you're not quite deployed yet, you can schedule just a quick touch base meeting. So that whole flow is easy. Then they can go to our shop.althea.net and buy their gear either on payments or upfront. And then that gear will be shipped pre-configured to you to install for them. So we have kind of that whole process. And I know Justin's working on some really great dashboard and organizer tools that I'm really excited for, so that you as the sort of network operator can manage your network too. So you don't have to learn routing, you don't have to learn MPLS or any of that kind of thing. All of that is sort of handled either with Rita, the routing and building software, or through our sort of modular solutions that you can use to help manage and use your network.
Yeah, I'll just kind of butt in at the end there and say that it is our goal that everything be literally you plug it in and it works. Like no software configuration touching is required at all. Right now I called out the radios as being one of the more difficult things that is left. Everything on an Althea router is plug and go. There's no configuration required. You open up the router and you sign up and you put some money in it and you're done. And if you buy the kits off of buy.althea.net, we will pair them for you, and it will literally be you screw it to the wall, you aim it in the right direction, and you plug all of it together, and you're done. And that's our ultimate goal, that we really scale up pre-paired antennas and that sort of thing, to the point where there is little to no barrier to setting up a new network.
And if you're more advanced and you want to, or you're already running a wireless ISP, and you want to add Althea to the edges of your network too, these services are kind of plug and play. So, yeah.
And Jeremy just added at the end, they said probably hybrid LTE mixed with high-speed backhaul, to clarify on their question. So
yeah, there's some interesting things on Ubiquity's LTU gear as well too, that I think is doing a little bit better job in those environments. Anything licensed is going to take a little longer.
I've put all the links to Republic and to our shop at Althea, where you can get all that gear, in our chat, and we'll add, if they're not in our description, we'll make sure that they're added for everyone who's watching this. And yeah, if you guys have more questions, feel free to keep asking them. I think right now we've covered most of ours, so you guys can elaborate more on putting up these networks.
I did want to make an aside to my last comment about licensing taking longer. Now, there is a new program for tribal areas where they can get 2.5 gigahertz. So if you are working with any of those folks, or you are setting up a network there, this might be a really great time to move forward with that. And I'm not sure how quickly all of the licensing and everything moves through the FCC, but if there was a time to push on this, it would be now. The FCC is definitely looking to get people connected now and be part of the solution as well. So that might be a good thing to pursue. The other licenses, possibly they're also willing to move faster on that too. Everyone still seems a little bit on the government level, not quite sure how to, kind of move forward in a quick fashion. But that might be some way that you can push on that. Okay, and then I wanted to talk a few minutes here about, let's say you do want to put together one of these rapid connectivity responses. What does that look like? How can that look? Where do you get started, right? So, and what is a rapid connectivity response? Well, it's simply just building a network quickly. It's everything that we normally do, right? But it's at an accelerated rate. And there are some ways to kind of push these things ahead much quicker. So basically, I'm seeing network creation, at least where I'm looking at moving my markets in, being pushed up by a couple of months about normally where I would deploy. But where you're going to want to get started is finding out where your need is, right? So if you're in a community like mine, where you're a rural community, you know that, like I said, we have 18 to 21% of our students that don't have broadband access. It's obviously a big need, but where are these people? And often, if you are in an urban area, some of the ISPs are offering some relief. I believe Comcast is offering 2 months of free internet essentials, and so that might be a good stopgap for some of the urban areas. But when we start talking about even just a little bit more outlying, I'm sure this is the case in Anderson Island, Elvis. There just isn't. I mean, 4 megabits per second is not broadband. You cannot jump on a video call and work with your colleagues. You cannot do e-learning from 4 megabits per second download.
A person trying to do the telemedicine, they actually called CenturyLink to complain or to try and get some better solution, and they literally said, "Well, you can try another. You can look for another provider." Well, there's another
one.
They literally told you to go
Very
somewhere
soon
else.
there will be. Yeah. So yeah, really excited to get those books hooked up as quick as possible. So one of the things that's kind of a good way to find and address where your needs are. I actually started a Facebook group or a Facebook page for folks to just explain where they're at, what their connectivity needs are. We got about 70 members right away, right? Who are in there talking about where their needs are, who their neighbors are that need it. And then we were able to share that on the community pages. Unfortunately, especially still in rural areas, Facebook is still one of the better ways to connect with your neighbors. As much, maybe hopefully Althea will, proliferate, and there'll be other types of social networks, decentralized social networks that will proliferate as well. But in the meantime, I would highly recommend reaching out on your Facebook community pages. Another thing that you're going to want to do is speak with your educational leadership, because these are folks that are looking for solutions right now. That's where I found out where we had that high percentage, right? So they're going to know, also they're going to have a good idea about where their students are, and where that connectivity need is. So reach out to local leadership. A lot of folks in government are really swamped right now, so please be patient with them. But sometimes there's ways to get that information. Otherwise, your school board or your school leadership's going to know that. Reach out on Facebook or these community pages and assess the need. Where is it that you need connectivity? Then the next step is to look for the solutions. Where can you get backhaul from? So this is also where we can be really flexible, and where if you've already started to have a relationship with people in education or people that's on the Chamber of Commerce, or some of these leadership who maybe aren't directly in government, those folks are on the phone all the time right now. So they are really, really busy. They may not be as responsive, but some of the community leadership, sometimes I can even be a small business owner. We have several very involved small business owners in Klatskanai who are kind of able to help identify that need and be part of the solution. And then reach out to local ISPs in that area, whether that's, last mile ISPs that might be willing to work with you and turn on their, their circuits faster, or some of these wholesale ISPs that might be in the area, or even some of the, your municipalities. You can get a hold of them, can sometimes also be your solution for rapid backhaul. Some of the flexible options that you can look at, or connecting into your school's internet backhaul. You could possibly also be setting up a Wi-Fi hotspot for them, so that students can go to the parking lot and get connected there. And that's something that you can look at. But and you also have existing wholesale carriers, especially if they also do last mile in your area, that can navigate from a business connection to a direct internet access. So direct internet access is kind of that wholesale backhaul. So what that could look like is that they get you set up with your backhaul that first, within a couple of days or a week, and then they can work on building out and provisioning it into direct internet access solution. So that means you can get people starting to get connected within a week, and then navigate them over to a better DIA connection. I've also seen where backhaul carriers right now are being more flexible about pricing, and there's kind of different ways you can structure it, right? Typically it's on a 3-year lease, and you pay. Oh, we lost Liz. It looks like we need to get her.
No,
We got you.
No, she's back.
I'm here. I froze?
For a second
No.
there.
My internet must be.
No, we need a rapid connectivity response are you still in Toronto?
I am. Yeah, I'm here for the foreseeable future now, guys. No,
Quick, someone
no coming back now.
Rapid response. Sometimes I'm willing to be flexible in that first year or that first few months, or on pricing, so that you can get the network built. You can give people, the end users, more flexible pricing. For example, right now, Klatskanai, the network here is offering free installs if it's a hardship. We're also offering to work with folks if they're having trouble paying for the high speed. Obviously, the system has the always on slower 1 megabit per second connection, so people can always at least get on Facebook, write an email, and connect with their family. But we do want to also realize that e-learning, all those things, they require broadband, they require high speed. So if people need help with that at this time, our local network is working to help them out with that too. So because of all of that, your backhaul providers also might be willing to be more flexible about the pricing, at least at the first kind of thing. I also would say really look into how you can start. You could start with an on-net building or a business connection and move that into a direct internet access. So you can really rapidly triage any like backhaul connection where they have to provision or do any build out to. It's going to take time. I mean, typically the quickest they can do that is 4 to 6 weeks. So find solutions with your backhaul providers for buildings that are what they call on net. That means they already have fiber circuits to them that you can utilize. Um, and then the kind of third component is how do you get the gear? How do you mobilize people to build out, right? So hopefully at this time you've already kind of located some folks to help you with that. Installers, handy people are great. People that do small remodels or work around the house are great folks to tap on the shoulder for this. Also, if you have a computer repair or IT store in town, those can also be really great folks to help you install. And then utilize, of course, Althea's tools to help you get the gear. Have people that can afford to pay for the installation, paying and getting some liquidity and money to build out for. And that's basically it. It's just all of the services, all the things that we do, but just a lot quicker. And I'm gonna write a blog post that's maybe gonna.
Deborah, what is the quickest that you could get a network set up if somebody was really, in a situation where you needed to get people online for young children or children going to school and all of that?
You really could do it in a week because you can get the gear in a week. You can utilize an existing business connection. Oftentimes business connections will have a terms of service that will not let you resell. I would imagine that the carriers may be more flexible at this time, especially if you are providing it at a lower cost rate. You may want to start with a conversation to them that says, "Hey, we want to start with this business connection and move it to DIA as soon as you can do that." But that's of course up to you. But really, the limitation is just the ability to get the gear and get it installed. 7 days. I mean, that's what we're looking actually at building into the next town over, and that's about our timeline for starting a new network in the next town over.
Got it. So that's for everybody out there who really needs to get this going fast. So you can do it in about a week.
Yeah, and we have the mini mesh kits available at the buy.althea.net site or shop.althea.net. I believe that gets you to the same place, right, Justin?
Yes, yes. Redirects all handled.
The links all go.
The mini mesh kit, and what that is, it's a Ubiquiti light beam access point, an affordable one, and a couple of nano beams, so you can connect up you and your neighbors. That light beam access point will handle about 8 to 10 other connections, so you can start with the 2 and add more nano beams. It's pre-paired, it all comes configured for you. So if you need to get some folks on the same street in the neighborhood, or you want to get started quickly, that's there online at buy.althea.net, and you can even make payments. We have a 6-month payment processor online for that too.
Yep, and I popped the link for that mini mesh kit in the chat, so if you are interested, check it out.
Another kind of thing I wanted to just chat about really quickly, this is some of the things that we're doing. Obviously, some of the ISPs are responding by not doing any installs right now because they don't want to be around people's homes. A couple of the precautions that we're taking is that our installers, when they're inside, will wear something covering their mouth. I mean, from what I understand, the masks, the virus still goes through that, but it just allows for any kind of droplets, right, or something like that. We do also wear gloves and sanitize as we go along, and try to limit exposure in the home. We are also offering our subscribers, if they want us to just, they can do a self-install kit. So we'll do all of the stuff on the outside of the home and then give them a package and instructions on how to set it up inside, which is pretty quick and easy. So trying to, it's been something that we've definitely been concerned about. Like, how do we manage the risk of installing in someone's home where we could be potentially, carriers and asymptomatic. And so we've been trying to really find that line between providing this essential coverage and service to our neighbors and keeping them safe. And that's the sort of compromise that we think makes sense at this time.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. And we don't have too many questions. Again, as I said, I put all the links in the chat. Is there anything else we're hitting about the 35 minute mark? Are there things you guys want to add to the conversation?
While we're waiting for some questions to come in, I wanted to also just chat a little bit why I feel like now is the time. Mm-hmm. So what we're already starting to see is some supply line issues for gear, for radios, and we're already starting to see the impact this is making on our communities. It does take some time to set these networks up, to get things in movement, to reach out to our community members. If we wait on this or we pursue this slowly, this is going to the impact is going to be that much more keenly felt. And at that time, we may not be able to get the gear as quickly. There may be other issues that arise. So I do feel that this is the time, if we are going to help, with this issue, that we need to start now.
Yeah.
I would like to add, we have had some comments from people on Facebook from Anderson Island saying, hey, we are a small island. We don't want people coming to our island and potentially infecting. And that's a concern for on both ends. That they don't want a lot of traffic back and forth. That's where especially right now we've already had a few technical people on the island reach out to us, and we're working really hard to organize technical people in the area that are already on the island itself that can help build this network out, and we've got a pretty surprising amount of interest in that. And it's really about I think Anderson Island and tight-knit communities like that already have a really desire to help and maintain their own community and do everything they can for their community. So that's what we're really working right now, to reach out to all of those people and try and coordinate, get a gauge of, how much time, what sort of availability they have, to be able to help neighbors get connected and things of that nature. So we've definitely been allaying people's fears that, we're just a 2-people group in the first place. I'm based in Missoula, Montana. My partner's out there in Tacoma, but as a general rule, we're really coordinating with people already on the island to ensure that they can have a truly community built and operated network. So there are people in the area that can help and can do all those things. So we're making a lot of progress in being able to break ground, and when we do, we have resources already on the island for that exact concern.
That's great. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's the great thing about Althea networks. They're not just disaster networks. They're not just a regular legacy ISP. These are community networks that are sustainable, that are going to meet the need now, but also be able to, continue on and be a sustainable solution. And definitely, I feel for the community members on Anderson Island. They're pretty close to where there's a lot of, kind of the epicenter there in Seattle. So I can see why they would want to maintain a literal moat.
Right. Exactly what they have. But at the same time, they're really hurting, especially for telemedicine. Those are communities that really, really need that service, because there isn't a hospital they can just go to, or a big medical center just right there. They have to be able to make the decision. Do I need to make that trek? Do I need to get on the ferry? Do I need to go to the mainland? Do I need to receive more medical attention? How do I make that call? Well, when you're cut off communication wise from the rest of the world, that makes the decision that much more difficult. Which is why we're trying to move forward that much faster with getting a network up and showing the residents on the island what Althea can really do. And again, that was really kind of our again, proving the point of exactly why we wanted to target Anderson Island first, is a really remote place. I mean, not that remote, but a remote place nonetheless, and show them, that we can bring them from, the digital past to the digital present very, very quickly, and have them enjoy those same services, so they can have telemedicine, so that their kids, don't have to go to the mainland or to find Wi-Fi or make that trek. So all the benefits that real broadband service provides. I mean, it's a necessity in today's world. It's not a luxury at all. It's something that people absolutely need. So it's a community that we're working really hard to break ground on and get them connected.
Thank you so much, Elvis. Really appreciate all the efforts that you're doing, and kind of to loop that back in with what the other person was saying. Well, how do I get started? How technical do you have to be? Well, really, the answer is you have to be willing to put in some project management time. That's the biggest sort of skill set that's needed, and be able to really kind of spearhead and champion the project. If you have that kind of drive, and especially right now, if you're really wanting to meet that need and can put in a few hours to make that happen, then that's who's going to be successful.
Yeah, it's very much a community project. You should think about, like, not just how do I make it happen, but how do a community make it happen. Where if you don't necessarily have the technical know-how, find those people that do, or if you don't have the ability to go to connect 20 houses, organize those people that do have the technical ability, or like as Deborah's mentioning, the people that are renovate houses and things like that, like do that type of work. So it's all about finding the resources that you need, coordinating them, organizing them, and getting the network built. And that's really what it's all about, is neighbors supporting neighbors and building a network and keeping it running.
Yep, and that's where Althea really shines. Our model is perfect for that.
Awesome.
Any more questions? I guess we have about 9 folks, it looks like, in the chat.
Yeah, it's been a bit quiet, this chat. We've had a few good questions, but yeah, I think they're just taking in all the information, because I think it's a lot, and I think we all know how important this is, and in this type of crisis, and we don't know how long it's going to go on, and things change every day. So I think getting more people access is just a priority. Maybe not it's a pretty high priority these days. So
yeah.
It's been a week, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and write up a blog post too that gives some more flash to how to do a rapid connectivity response, of course, why it's important, and how we can implement these in their community. And then until then, grab a mini mesh kit, grab your cape.
Get a ladder, climb up that roof.
So wait. Branded capes are the next piece of swag we're making?
Signal, like a bat signal, but only the Althea signal of like, we need here.
Yeah, that may be for assessing.
Assessing need.
Exactly. Anywhere there's trouble, we're here. Anywhere there's poor connectivity.
Yeah. Hey, Deborah, I'm going to give a bit of a technical update, and then we can wrap up. That sound good?
Sounds good to me. Thank you, Justin.
Cool. So I've been working on organizer tools the past couple of weeks, specifically things for existing ISPs and less technically inclined organizers. And I'm looking forward to revealing those in about a month. And also there is a new blog post, technical blog post, that if you're interested in that sort of thing may make for fun reading. And I think I'm going to have another one out soon about a sort of funny issue. But yeah, so most of the technical work right now is focused on making things easier to run sort of at a large scale. And our latest firmware, Beta 12, comes with a bunch of nice features to help facilitate that. Although the actual interface to use those features won't be out for a little while. So looking forward to revealing it sometime in April.
Yeah, super excited about that. That's going to be great. Also, really great for ISPs that want to add Althea to the edges of the network. So that'll make it super easy for them to just plug and play Althea where it's needed.
Yes, for sure.
Okay, cool. Thanks everybody for coming. And does Deborah have any closing words?
Yes, grab your cape, grab your mini mesh, and go now.
All right. Thanks, guys, for having me.
Thank you, Elvis.
Thanks for coming. And let's see, that's this button.